We are very grateful that you're joining us. Our goal with Page is to try to get some community input into what would be attractive for families to send their students to what is really a startup. We have had gifted programming here. We're very proud of the gifted programming we offer, but we also, when we look at sort of the concept of a one-stop shop, and we look at what we've created things like PASS for students that are in danger of not graduating or coming back and hoping to get a diploma. We've created Parma Virtual Learning Academy. We've created ACEs for students with autism. We've created KLA, Kindergarten Launch Academy. So we've created a lot of programs for students that need some extra support, but we really haven't addressed that other end of the spectrum with our gifted students. And so our goal is really to build an elite gifted institution that really would be a pipeline from our Parma schools into Ivy League schools, into high branches of the military, into entrepreneurships, into whatever our students can become. We want to really maximize their potential and their abilities. And so that really is our goal when we think about PAGE. And PAGE stands for Parma Academy of Gifted Enrichment. And tonight what we want to do is hear from you in terms of what would really be compelling for you to send your child here. So we do have some givens, and you see those on the screen in front of you. You'll notice that we don't have a lot of givens because while we will open this next September, we have some really guiding philosophies, but beyond that, we want to be flexible and shape this to what families are hoping to see. And so again, that's why this is the first and what will really be a series of installments of parents taking some ownership in the structuring of this program. So our conversations to this point have led us to conclude that we will begin next year with third and fourth grades and locate these at Parma Park. So Parma Park is being vacated as an elementary school. It's part of our consolidation plan. However, we were always going to keep Parma Park, and a large function of Parma Park will be the central office. That will be one of the amenities that will be at Parma Park. Beyond that, though, we will have some educational programs, and PAGE will be one of them. So Parma Park is the location. Again, it's third and fourth grades. We have entrance requirements, and these are things that we've talked about in-house as well. Superior cognitive ID, meaning you're identified as superior cognitive, or math and ELA gifted percentiles, and MAP and COGAT are assessments that we administer right now to help determine that. We also have explored a curricular model, and that is the integrated curriculum model. And we will send this document out to everybody afterward. And you can, if you're not familiar with the integrated curriculum model, certainly peruse that website that's linked there. It sort of talks below about what it really focuses on, but essentially you've got overarching concepts, advanced content, and process product. And really, I think it's that process product part that really differentiates what we want to offer at Page compared to what we might be seeing in our everyday classrooms. Core curriculum with extended standards is still the guide, so we still follow state standard. This is not, some type of freelance, so to speak. I mean, we will follow a state curriculum. The extended standards already have some enrichment tied within them, but it's that integrated curriculum model that will really be the differentiator. I also want to introduce a couple of folks that are on here, and I'm grateful that they have joined. Dr. Stropko is our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction. So she is here, obviously a very important player in this process. And then Tiffany Buchanan, Mrs. Buchanan, is on here as well. She's currently our lead gifted teacher. And in addition to being the lead gifted teacher, she also is serving this year in this PAGE planning capacity. So she is really an important member as well. Dr. Stropko or Mrs. Buchanan, did you want to comment on anything I've said to this point before we hear from some folks about what they might want to see in this?
No, I think you covered everything. Thank you.
Okay. And I saw Tiffany nod as well. So with that, we have Amy Popick here, and she is going to help us to take any notes. And again, we have ideas clearly, and we have some plans, some tentative plans, but we want to hear from you. What would be something that would really be exciting to you as a parent as you think about sending your gifted child to PAGE next year? You can just kind of raise a hand and I'll be able to see that, and then we'll share out. And Amy will record that. don't forget to unmute yourself because I won't hear you if you're muted. Jackie, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could see me. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Yes, ma'am.
So you've answered a little bit of my questions because my concern, like in my case, particularly my son's in 4th grade, and my understanding is next year when he goes to 5th grade, there isn't actually a true gifted program. At least that's what I gathered from my conversation with his current gifted teacher, that there's essentially just advanced placement classes. So it sounds like you already are looking at this one curriculum model, but I think as a parent, I think that was my overall concern because right now I feel like his only true gifted learning environment is when he is with his gifted teacher, which is a limited amount of time, 1 day a week. And I know that during his other class time, there's differentiation going on, but to me, it's not a true gifted learning environment. It's just differentiation based on, academic skill and high achievers. And so I think one of the things I am hoping, and I don't even know that my son will be a part of it or when it would come to fruition, but I feel that there's a disservice going on because I can tell even just some of the language that is used when he's in his quote unquote regular classes, even if it's in a level of differentiation, that there's not a true understanding of what giftedness is. I absolutely think that his gifted teacher, Mrs. Myrider, has it hands down. She treats the child, and even in her communications with us as parents, as she recognizes that their giftedness is not just about them being smart or high level achievers. She recognizes that there's asynchronous development. So they might be really gifted in one area and maybe only like slightly higher than their peers in another. And she also very much is in tune to the part that it's a whole child situation where typically they're more sensitive, they're more intuitive to their environment, they're more cognitive of their surroundings and things of that nature, and that they are taking everything in on just a completely different level. In his regular classes, even though there's differentiation, like with ELA and things like that, for example, I mean, even this school year, we've dealt with things with teachers making comments like, I expected more out of you on that test because you were gifted. The other day, I was told that, they were talking about a lot of deaths that happened with the hurricane, and Kyle seemed to be sensitive to that. And I'm not trying to sound defensive over my son, but when people are saying things like that, it just makes me feel like they really have, I don't want to say no business because it's not a gifted environment. So they're not used to that. But I just feel like there's a lack of education where I would hope that the teachers would be that are interacting with the gifted students, and then maybe where they're at. And I'm sure they all have some amount of training in that. But when people are saying things like, oh, I expected more out of you because you're gifted, and they clearly aren't looking at like what areas in particular that child is gifted in, or they're looking at it like a blanket, you're just supposed to excel evenly across the board. I just don't feel like they have a good grasp on it. So, how is this program going to be different? Obviously, it's just going to be for the gifted children. So I, would hope that the teachers and everyone involved have that additional layer of education. But I think that's my concern. And then also, I know this is about Paige, but since this obviously is only going to be physically at one school and starting with 3rd and 4th graders, what does this mean for other gifted children that are not going to be there or are going to be going into a different grade? Or like in my son's case, going into 5th grade, where there's no longer going to be like him being pulled out for gifted time, and there's just essentially advanced placement classes available.
Yeah, so
I know that's a lot, but I think
it's okay.
You know where I'm going with that. It's all
together
in one.
Couple good points, and then some questions at the end there. So I appreciate all of those. In terms of gifted, when they're not with their, like Miss Morider, you mentioned, those teachers do have to go through professional development to have gifted students in their classroom. So I don't know if either Dr. Stropko or Mrs. Buchanan want to talk a little bit about that professional development model that we provide beyond the, Mrs. Moriders, who are obviously dedicated for our gifted.
Sure. So every teacher that has gifted students in their classroom has 15 hours of gifted PD per year for the first 4 years. That's an ODE mandate that every teacher has to get that PD. And then after that, they get an additional 6 hours of PD every year, like every single year, an additional 6 hours of PD. And that is just specific to gifted education. And we do focus specifically on like the students in their classroom and the curriculum that we use here in Parma and how they can use that specifically with their gifted learners to best meet their needs. So that's every teacher, all of our math and all of our ELA teachers. And that's actually right now in grades 2 through 12. So all of the teachers that like your students will have even next year, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and upward. Those teachers will have that PD as well, so that they can truly have a better understanding of those gifted learners.
Yeah. And we're not.
I understand where I'm coming from, though. Like, I think in those comments that are being said, though, to me, regardless of how many hours they may have had as a parent, that makes me feel like they don't have a true understanding of what it means, whereas like when you talk with a gifted teacher, just everything that she incorporates, you can understand she gets it hands down. And obviously that's her specialty, that's her focus. But I just feel like it's a disservice to the children if they're working with people and there's expectations and things like that, or the way they're being treated or talked to, and somebody making those comments to me clearly doesn't have an understanding about like asynchronous development that's very typical in gifted children, or what being gifted means.
Yeah. And listen, we're not here to say at all that, professional development, regardless of its rigor or quality, will always, make everybody kind of what we would hope they would be. And so that is honestly a purpose of Page, is to have that, truly unique environment where, teachers have really self-selected into that program, so that, some of these concerns, are addressed. Dr. Sharpko, can you comment too? I know we have a gifted night. I believe it's January 3rd or somewhere in there.
We have a gifted night coming up. It is our second year that we are doing it in this format. And what it does is it talks about our continuum of services. We have our gifted teachers at the elementary, our AP honors at the middle and high school level in breakout sessions. And the other point that I wanted to discuss is that typically when a child gets to middle school and high school level, the track in which we serve our gifted students is our honors and our AP program. And all of our teachers at the secondary level also get that gifted certification as well. So I hear some concerns about once they get into a certain grade level that there is no longer gifted services. That is not the case. That is how we serve our gifted students, and that is very similar in surrounding districts as well.
Okay.
And Jackie, I would always too, anytime you have a concern with the teacher, please feel free to voice that to the teacher first and the principal next. And, hopefully they're going to be responsive, because again, it has been something that they have had, maybe not, a full degree in, but they've had, professional development requirements that they have met. So.
Right. And he likes the teacher and I like her. I don't think they mean to do it. It's just when those comments are made, to me, it's just a lack of information. Like they have a lack of knowledge in that area of what that, how they should use that term or what that means as far as, I feel like when I'm talking to his gifted teacher, I just, like I said, it's just night and day difference versus, she would never make a comment like that. Like she realizes like she has children in her program that excel in, reading comprehension or math and they're not, it's not just like a cookie cutter. If anything, they're less cookie cutter than anything, it's the complete opposite way, depending on where their abilities and their strengths are at. So with this be a program, then I know you said you're looking at starting it in 3rd and 4th grades. Is this something that you think potentially, how are you looking at that potential timeline for growth then? Because obviously I know we would fall out of those parameters anyway.
Yeah, I think 3rd and 4th grade is something we need to start with and solidify. But it is also something, we've said we want it to be a pipeline. So it's not necessarily something that we would expand at Parma Park per se. It may be something we expand at Parma Park, but could it be something where, those fourth graders next year have a very specific, there's 3 middle schools. So do we funnel them to one specific middle school with one specific core battery of teachers? Those are the questions that we're going to, work through. Just being 100% honest, our objective right now is to have a very strong third and fourth grade program next year that almost has parents sort of begging, like, this needs to continue. That's our goal. And that would be a victory in how we look at, planning beyond that.
Okay. Well, from a parent standpoint, all I would say is that anything that you can do to build on what the children are already getting in that gifted time, and anything that you could do to build upon that so that there's that gap in between, just like the matter of differentiation, and even just in terms of just the challenge, the work that they're provided, it's very out of the box, requires a lot of creative thinking, really challenges them. I know a lot of times, sometimes if you're just having high achievers, like they want to know very specifically, like, okay, what do we need to do to get a good grade on this? So there's sometimes even more parameters. And I know, like with the gifted work that they do, a lot of times they leave that more up to the child. There's less parameters. Obviously, there's things that they have to deliver in their work, but it allows them the opportunity to grow and think outside of the box and really take off with their own ideas and contemplate, whatever the project may be. So honestly, I think anything that could build upon that kind of gets them, excited about that. Cause I know I can't speak for anybody else's child. We have friends that are also in the gifted program. And one thing that I noticed, and I'm sure a lot of parents notice it with their gifted children, is if they get bored with something, it doesn't matter how good they are at it. A lot of times then they just kind of just go through the motions. It can come across as not being engaged or interested. And Kyle I haven't had any complaints with Kyle being that way. But just little tweaks make a big difference. Sure. Just for example, like Kyle, just normally he would say he hates math, which I know is a strong word, and he does it. He gets an A, but he doesn't like it. Well, then his teacher sent home a packet where it was like 7 pages of math, and she gave them about 10 days to do it. But you had to do the math to get the answers. Every page was a different code that you had to break. And he did that thing start to finish within under 20 minutes because it was just so exciting for him. Wow. Just to have that extra level, that extra challenge. And so I think anything you can do where the children are being challenged and stimulated and in an opportunity where they can grow, maybe not everybody is always kept at the same growth pace. And I know you don't have really a choice sometimes, even in differentiation, when you're dealing with groups and you might have 10 kids pulled out for this like group of ELA, or even if you're in the regular classroom and you have 19 or 20 kids, I completely get it. You got to keep everyone kind of on the same page. But I think any environment that you can create where you have the ability and the allowance or the simple, manpower, the simple bodies of teachers and assistants there to allow the children to kind of move on at their own rate, I think would be an amazing opportunity for any child in the gifted program.
No, it's great. I think we got a lot of that. And I want to get to Deanna, because you've had your hand up for a little bit. Thank you, Jackie.
Sorry, Deanna. Thank you.
Oh, you're fine. No, it's fine.
We appreciate the
no, you made really good points. I agree with that. My only concern, because my daughter's going to 4th grade, and we would definitely be interested in this program. But how cut up, like, are they still going to be doing extracurricular activities like choir, that kind of stuff? Because she wants to do that stuff, and I don't want her to miss out on that stuff.
Yeah, we don't either. This should not be making a choice to not have those opportunities. So we need to figure out, and again, part of it's going to be how many kids are there and where are they coming from in terms of, the schools that they would have been assigned to, because we will figure out how we can get them the same opportunities that the others do. We agree with you. We don't want this to be, oh my God, if I pick this, I miss out on, 7 different things.
Yeah. And that would be our only major concern with that. Because she likes to do all that extra stuff. She's doing Girls on the Run at Pleasant Valley and that kind of stuff. But I do agree. She loves gifted. She absolutely loves it. But she goes to gifted, and then she has to go back and make up all that extra work she doesn't do in class for homework on top of her other homework. You know, they don't have enough time with the gifted.
Right.
And I just think this would be a really good opportunity for her to.
So she'll be in fourth grade next year, you said?
Yeah, she'll be in fourth grade next year. You can tell she wants to do more. She's not bored with her teachers. She loves her teachers. She's bored with the work.
Sure.
So
no, that's great. And that's a very pointed question. And we appreciate that question because that, again, as you all know, there's a good number of moving parts in the district right now for next year. But as we line those parts up, we have to keep that in mind as well. We don't want this to, a student shouldn't take a step into this program and then feel like they're deprived of, some other things that they enjoy. There's a Tracy who came on too. I'm not sure, Tracy, if you had any questions or comments you wanted to provide. We were simply, Tracy disappeared. Tracy said, "Oh, no, I was going to get called on. I'm off." Yeah, Bob also left. Well, Deanna and or Jackie, if you had any parting thoughts, we're certainly open to hearing them. You've given us already some good things to think about. Some of them we were already thinking about, but like, for instance, Deanna, your point about like student council and choir, we've got to make sure we have answers for that. We, again, are developing it. It's beginning of November, but we recognize that, parents are going to want to make these decisions sooner than later. So we will continue to put some details to the sketch at this point so that you can make an educated decision. So Tiffany or Tiffany, anybody want to comment?
No, I certainly love the feedback. Definitely some great points to consider as we begin our planning.
I agree. Just great points. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate it.
I can't wait. This is very exciting.
Good.
Thank you for putting it together. Even though Kyle won't be in those grades, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be there for other children in the district.
Well, and thank you, Jackie, for your comments tonight, because they're spot on, really. They're what we're thinking as well. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for putting this together.
Okay. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.